This is the MochaFootball.com.
The MochaFootball.com.
This is the MochaFootball.com weekly podcast.
Everybody, we're back here again. This is the MochaFootball.com weekly podcast. We're previewing the 4A East today. Damon, in my opinion, this is one of the most, if not the most exciting divisions in Montgomery County, just based off the fact that, the depth of it, the teams that are in it, there's a lot of excitement going on around, especially we're going to get into Blair, what Paint Branch is doing in Sherwood. But then you got teams like SBrook and Einstein. Just to, do a cool review. Yeah, Sherwood last year really came out and I guess pretty much you can say dominated the division. They didn't lose a game, obviously, in the regular season on the field. Obviously, they had a forfeit situation, which caused their one loss. Went basically wire to wire, had a tough game versus Blair, but for the most part, handled pretty much everybody else in the division. Lost to Howard in the playoffs. Paint Branch started off strong, but kind of tailed off at the end, losing 2 of the last 3, and basically kind of ending on a sour note after having really big time expectations with the linebacker core that they had, the wide receivers that they had, the overall team that they had last year. Not making it to the playoffs kind of was a disappointing thing for them. Blair ended up making the playoffs for the second year in a row, faced QO in the playoffs, and didn't really compete in the way that they probably wanted to, but obviously for a program like Blair to make it to the playoffs for a second year in a row, that's a huge boost for them. SBrook under Coach Lomax has a new look. They were a tough out for everybody. Obviously this year you're going to look to build upon it. And Einstein, me and you, Damon, I'm kind of glad that last year we kind of took a wait and see approach with Einstein, because a lot of people were kind of jumping on their bandwagon. And me and you, last year we were like, look, we're going to have to wait and see. And it's a good thing that we did that, because last year this time everybody was talking about, Einstein and, what they could possibly do. And it didn't turn out like that. Now, obviously injuries had a part in that. They clearly had a disappointing season. What are some of the things from last year that you took away from this division overall?
The division definitely lived up to expectations, especially with Paint Branch and Sherwood being the front runners pretty much all season up until week 8 when they finally faced off. So it was exciting to watch to see how that division shook out. I was extremely happy to see improvements by some of the second-tier teams in that division, specifically SBrook. Even though record-wise it wasn't exactly what they wanted, you could see there was drastic improvement for the Blue Devils. Blair, like you mentioned, they made it to the playoffs for the second year in a row, which is exactly what you need to keep the momentum going when you're trying to establish a program as one of the top teams in the county. Coach Fields and his staff have done an excellent job with the Blazers. Other than that, Kennedy and Northwood, they have some rebuilding to do, but they definitely have some talent in place, and definitely, especially in Kennedy's case, an experienced coaching staff. So hopefully they can put it together soon. So I'm kind of I'm gonna have an eye on those two teams to see what they can do in the 2016 season. But going back to last year, Sherwood going undefeated on the field. I don't think anybody saw that coming, even the most diehard Sherwood supporters.
Yeah, so that's true.
They definitely did their thing in the regular season. Unfortunately, it came to an end in the regional finals versus Howard, but overall it was a great season. Paint Branch, they had an excellent season, but it ended on a sour note with them not making the playoffs.
Right.
Unfortunately, they needed to close out the season with a win than, something crazy happening in the final week, which unfortunately didn't go in their favor. But with that sour taste being left in their mouth, I expect them to come out with a chip on their shoulder. They definitely have a lot of returning talent. Some people would say that they might take a step back this season, but I'm not so sure about that, especially given their schedule. I mean, I'm not going to come out and say that they could go undefeated, or they will go undefeated, but they won't be too far off. It'll be very similar to last year. They'll come out strong, and when they get into the meat of their schedule toward the end, we'll find out what the Panthers are really made of. But overall, I expect more of the same in 2016. I expect some of the second-tier teams to step up, maybe have a surprise entrant to challenge Sherwood and St. Branch. Blair's sitting right there with them. They want to try to unseat those two teams as the top dogs in that division. So there's a lot to watch when it comes to 4A Moco East.
All right, everybody, we're here with Coach Lomax, the second-year head coach over at SBrook. This man had done some great things, came over, brought a lot of excitement to SBrook last year. And, Coach, first and foremost, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We've talked about you a lot on the show. Me and Damon are really big fans of what you bring to the table as a coach. Now, this is your second year, at SBrook. After being a year in, just talk about the environment when you first got to SBrook and where it is now, and how you've implemented what you've implemented, and how it's kind of, if it's changed, if it's kind of, some things have stayed the same. What have you kind of seen, the evolution of the SBrook programs, year two going forward into your first week of your second year?
Well, when I first got there last year, man, I had about, a dozen or so hungry seniors that, they'd been part of the program for 3 years. They hadn't seen a winning record, and they were kind of hungry to be a part of something and win. But there was only about 12 to 15 of them.
Right.
So, as we worked through workouts last year, they grinded, and more kids started joining. This year, I had probably on average 50 to 60 kids every day at workouts. So more and more of the kids in the building are starting to buy into what we're doing. They're feeling the excitement. They see that, it's more than just football is what I try to bring to them. It's not just, let's go out there and be a football team. We truly bring in the family mentality. I have programs set up for these guys where we do the Coaching Boys into Men program, where we're trying to teach nonviolence towards women, making good positive decisions. We're trying to do philanthropic work in the community. We're trying to do a lot of things to help. Not necessarily, I would love to have every single one of these guys make the NFL, come back and buy me cars and all that kind of stuff. But reality is, man, I'm trying to build these boys into men so that they can make decisions and be positive role models later on, and make the same kind of impacts me and the other coaches around the county make on the youth that are going to impact us when we're a ripe old gray age and we're trying to retire. We want good people running our country. So it's more about that than it is about the X's and O's.
Absolutely. Just detail that, why it's so important for you with what you have at SBrook to be implementing some of those things that you're implementing right now, and building the men that you're building, the way that you're building them, and that emphasis. Just expand on that and how that's a really important thing for you.
Yeah, you can see in today's society, you see it on the news all the time, a lot of bad things happen, between different communities and police, and there's just a lot of things, and I try to bring these guys in, and we have real discussions about these things, so they can understand that it's okay to be angry about things, but there are certain ways to display your anger that is appropriate in society. We don't want to be another destructive statistic that goes out, and then all of a sudden, now we're taken off the shelf and we're put into jail or losing opportunities to go to college or whatever else may come in a negative light. We just want to keep influencing the positive and keep pushing these kids and more importantly, pushing them in school.
Right.
Because if you do get that, I mean, the days of when me and you were in school are over, where you can come out with a high school degree or associate's degree and still have that American dream life. It's not that way anymore. Now it's a 4-year degree, and by the time these kids are our age, it's going to be a master's degree, and it's just going to keep getting more and more competitive. So that's something that football brings to them, and you got to compete for what you want in life, and you have to do it in a disciplined manner. And that's what we try to drive home to these guys every single day.
What you're doing is creating a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz for the program. And have you seen the reaction to, because obviously SBrook is a place where, you know, there's a lot of different cultures, a lot of different stimuli that's within the school. And, you know, you're going to have to basically sell the program a little bit more with the community that you have. You know, talk about the response that you've been getting from not only, you know, off the field, but on the field, you know, with you guys actually having a 500 record last year, something that a lot of people didn't expect, and that translating over to the numbers that you're talking about and going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a real positive response from inside the school. I mean, the band's gotten on board. Other teachers have gotten on board. They see, like, you know, we run an academic monitoring program. Teachers are now getting behind the students, and instead of, like, pushing away, oh, that's a jock athlete that doesn't really want to do anything, they're kind of embracing the fact that these young men are coming to them and asking for help. Look, I may be from Jamaica, and I may have only had 5 years of education. Can you please sit with me and help me learn to read? Can you please sit with me and help me learn to do Algebra 1 or geometry or learn a different language? They just need the help. And by getting all these people, it's like they say, it takes a village. So to get all the people in the building on board with kind of being that full village mentorship kind of deal, that it's been a tremendous asset. And I mean, you know, when you start winning and you start putting up points and you start doing good things, then all of a sudden the kids like it. They come to the games. All of a sudden you get bigger crowds, and now it's as all the kids say, it becomes lit. It becomes a good place to be, and then it becomes Friday Night Lights, and people are excited about it, and people want to be a part of it, even if it's not a matter of being the team. People want to come out, and they want to be managers, and they want to come take photos for us, and they want to do film duties, and they want to do all these other things that maybe they weren't blessed with the size, the strength, the speed to play the sport, but they want to be a part of our family. And I have open arms for everybody, because I mean, I know there's a lot of kids in that building that need help, and it's not just the football team. It goes beyond that, and there's bigger goals and aspirations. You've
really put a stamp on the program when it comes on to just, you know, college recruiting and getting colleges into the school. And if anybody follows you on any social media outlet, you take a lot of pride in marketing your kids. And, you know, you've actually messaged me a couple times anytime you feel like, you know, Mocha Football hasn't given some of your kids some respect, and you're really big on that. You're really big on making sure that your kids get out there, and we see that your kids, what your kids are doing. Talk about just like how that has kind of changed, and, you know, the colleges coming into the school and seeing some of your kids, and also just the media and everybody involved, seeing your kids more, and you know, how that kind of has changed the perception of the program.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to that stuff, I mean, it's pretty much how bad do you want to grind for your kids. And like I said, the family mentality we're building, I look at every one of my guys as I treat them as if I would treat my own children, because I want them taken care of in the highest light. So, I mean, I have 3-4 recruiting services that work with us right now. I have DMV recruiting. Coach Googs came out and he gave a speech to all of my players. It was outstanding and unbelievable. If anybody can get him to come in through DMV recruiting and talk to their program, he does an excellent job.
Right.
We work with several people, and I'm just constantly putting it out there because I want people to know. And it's not that I feel like, oh, I'm slighted because my guy didn't get this recognition or not. It's more from like almost like a fatherly standpoint where you're like feeling a little hurt, like, man, you know, because I see it on the front line. And I mean, look, there's all great athletes in our county. They all deserve the recognition. But when you're with that kid every single day, you see how hard he grinds to the bone. He bleeds. He sweats. He does everything you ask of him. That's why it just kind of burns a little bit deeper inside of you. But I mean, again, it's just like I teach the kids. You got to be humble. You work, and eventually you'll get your comeuppance in life. But it doesn't doesn't come easy. Nothing in life comes easy.
Right. No, absolutely. And one of the kids that it seems like he's following in those teachings, you know, to the team and to the overall program is Lomax. He's a kid that when you watch him on film, big, strong kid, you know, has a lot of upside. Just talk about him. He committed to Wake Forest. I know that's a big thing for you. That was a big moment for not only SBrook, but for you personally. You know, talk about his development from the time you actually got to SBrook to now a Division I athlete with multiple offers and committed to Wake Forest.
Yeah, it's funny because when I got there, he was just a kid coming up from JV who had only played 1 year of football in his whole life.
Right.
He had never played football before. He actually just started speaking the English language. He's naturally from Cameroon and went through France and spoke French. And when he came through here as an 8th grader, he came in as an ESOL student.
Right.
So he has built himself and worked. I mean, he's probably the hardest worker I've ever been around in my life. Like, he grinds in the weight room, he grinds in the classroom. He's a 3.6 plus GPA. But just from the time I got here, it was a lot of like, well, he jumps off sides a lot, he's uncoordinated, he's this, he's that. But, you know, as a football coach coming in, I mean, especially, you know, I love my kids from Rockville. You know, that's where I went to school, that's where I came from. I was like, but, you know, at Rockville, we didn't get a whole lot of 6'4", 280-pound monsters running around through the hallways. So, like, I was like a kid in a candy store when I saw him. So, I mean, he's got that nasty, mean streak to want to just punish people out there. And, you know, once he hit it in the weight room, especially this offseason, he really didn't know how to lift. I mean, he was squatting probably, I don't know, like 325, 335 left, which is still pretty good. But in a year, he's already up to like 545 on his squats, just because he lives in the weight room. I mean, and like I said, when he's not in the weight room, he's reading, he's doing research, he's just always grinding to make himself better in some aspect of life. And I know in my heart, like, he's going to be successful because we could have streamlined him a lot of different ways to a lot of bigger schools. But when me and him sat down, it was, where am I going to get the best education? Can I get into an Ivy League school? If not, where am I going to receive the best? Is it going to be Georgetown, Wake Forest, or Vanderbilt? Like, he wasn't worried about Alabamas and USC's and people like that. We actually sat with a coach who came in, and Lloyd looked this man in the face and said, how can you give me the best government job possible? And like, my jaw dropped. I was like, this is a 16-year-old kid talking about a government job.
Right.
So, I mean, he's got a supreme level head on his shoulders.
I mean that's rare when it comes on to, you know, a 16, 17-year-old kid. Having that kind of maturity, having you as a mentor, and then now, you know, infusing what obviously his parents obviously instilled in him as well. You know, I mean, I love hearing stories like that.
And I'll tell you what, not to cut you off, but he's got a little brother who's a 10th grader who's already probably going to be starting both ways for us, and he's bigger than Loic was when he was his age. Wow. So yeah, and he was a varsity heavyweight last year on the wrestling team, had never played organized sports, and won about 17, 18 matches just because he's got one of those motors that goes in 5th gear and just never stops. Okay. Plus he's like 235, 240. So, I mean, he's a brick house.
Okay, so you know, that's something for me to look out for, you know, when it comes on talking about players. So I'm definitely gonna keep an eye on that. You have a lot of talent on your team, a lot of good athletes, but it's not. It's one of those things where a lot of people don't really know the names of them, right? There's a kid that me and Damon really love, and Tyler Beckwith. When we watch him on film, he's a kid that we feel like he's going to break out this season. Kind of talk about him a little bit and his development, and obviously in your offense, he's obviously a special player for you. Just talk about him and his athleticism, what he brings on the outside of on your offense.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very fluid wide receiver. He's probably our best route runner. He's very quick in and out of his breaks. He's very smooth. He's probably about 6 foot, so he doesn't have like elite size, but you know, he's big enough and strong enough that he can body people up for balls. His ball skills are outstanding. He's a guy who's played over his career in high school. He's played multiple sports. He's played lacrosse. He plays basketball. So he's a multi-dimensional competitor, which is something we love. Like, I'm a coach who is very big on playing as many sports as you can, because I want guys who want to go out there and win at everything. I don't care if we sit down and play a game of bridge or Parcheesi or whatever game you want to put on the table, Madden. Like, I want guys who want to win. and that's what we're getting at. And Tyler's one of those guys, man. He's a rare athlete in his skill and size, but he's got a winner's mentality. And I mean, I'm hoping for big things from him this year. He was banged up a little last year, off and on with injuries, so he never really got into full gear. So we're hoping this year, in the positions we're putting him in, he's gonna light it up.
You know, continuing on the athlete theme, when you look at the consortium that you're in, right? Look at Paint Branch, and then you also look at Blake. Blake really hasn't had the success on, you know, when it comes on to wins and losses, but they obviously have a few athletes over there that are really good. Paint Branch obviously has had, you know, really good success with, you know, over the last, I'd say 10 years. Just talk about the consortium and how that dynamic is kind of, you know, obviously you're coming from Rockville where there wasn't one, you know, how that dynamic has kind of shifted or shaped how you kind of attack getting the athletes to the school first and foremost, and then getting them on the field.
Yeah, I mean, the consortium, I'm not going to lie, the consortium is a tough deal. I mean, it's
right.
nice to be able to have the kids in your neighborhood know who you're going to get from the time they're in kindergarten.
Right.
I mean, I think Damascus is the gold standard for that, where you bring them in at 3-4 years old when mama gives birth, you put that green on them, and then they're running the wing tee or whatever they're running that time, and they run it all the way up until they get to high school. I mean, that's a huge advantage for people who are not in the consortium. Being in the consortium, you know, we got kids coming and going. Sometimes they're transferring in, they're moving around. So you pretty much, we almost act as if we're like minor league college coaches, because you got to go and sell yourself and sell your program to 7th and 8th graders. And if they don't buy into what you're selling, then they have other options. Whereas when you're in a school that has a middle school feeder, they really don't have any choice. I mean, some schools can work whatever they work to get players, but I mean, for the most part, you got who you got coming up.
Right.
So and at SBrook, it can be difficult just because, I mean, look, you know, the coaches in our consortium are outstanding. Coach Anderson's an outstanding coach. Coach Neesmith is quickly becoming one of the legends in the county. I mean, he's been doing it for a long time, and you know, getting that $100 and some million building dropped into his pocket didn't do a whole lot for recruiting, but you know what I mean. And then you look over at Blake, who's got like 100 acres. So you know, I mean, these guys have some advantages when they go to sell their program, where we're still working with a building from a long time ago. But it's like I tell my coaches, I tell our players, I was like, there's no excuses. I tell them the story about Friendship Collegiate when Oz was down there working it. I was like, they changed in a metal sea tank container and played in an infield on dirt and rocks.
Right.
Like, yet they put 98 D1 kids in 5 years. So it can be done. There's no excuses for anything else. It just means that we got to work that much harder. We don't have the shiny new kicks to be like, hey, look what we got. No, we got to go out there and show them the meat and potatoes. Right.
No, absolutely. And, you know, you guys have definitely elevated yourselves to a point where we're looking at you guys as possible contenders in the 4A East. When you look at the division overall, of course, you got the heavyweights in Sherwood and Paint Branch. You got an upstart Blair team, and then you got yourselves, you got Einstein, you got Kennedy, you got Northwood. Where do you see yourselves in this division, and this is gonna be the last question, Coach. What is a successful season for SBrook next year? After the season, if this happens, you would be like, okay, this was a success. This season was a step forward for the SBrook program.
I think we need to have a winning record. I think that's the first step in the right direction. I think last year, I truly in my heart feel, if Sean Kazoo didn't get hurt week 5, then we would have had a winning record out of year 1. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, obviously we had to do it on the field, but the way that cat was running, like we would have gotten another one or two somewhere. Right. But you know, I think we're going in the right direction. A winning record would be outstanding in towards of moving that way. I mean, playoffs are always the goal. We talk about that from day one, because once you get in the playoffs, it's just like the NFL. It doesn't matter. It's a brand new tournament. Records are thrown out, and anything at all can happen. But we know the reality of the 4A North, and we saw it with Paint Branch last year. I mean, you slip up one time, and you're on the outside looking in. So, I mean, it's hard. I mean, right now I've got a team with only about 10 seniors on it. normal and really young, which bodes well for the future. But in the meantime, trying to. I mean, we're gonna game it out as hard as you can, but trying to pull a 10-0 record out of that 4A North, and if you don't go 10-0. I mean, there's a good chance you don't make it even at 9-1.
Right, right.
Because those Baltimore schools in Howard County, they're gonna go 10-0.
Right.
Because of the teams they play. So that leaves 2 spots left, and you slip up one time, and it might be lights out.
Yeah.
And like you said, with 2 heavyweight contenders in there, you got to knock out one of them. And I mean, I would even put Blair right there in that situation too. All the things that Coach Fields has done down there has just been amazing.
Right. No, absolutely. And obviously we would love to get 2 teams in. And it's tough, like you said, with the Howard County teams and the Baltimore teams. They're probably going to go. I mean, Howard has created a monster over there, and they've kind of taken over the mantle that River Hill once had. River Hill used to have the stranglehold in that county, and now they've kind of taken that over. And now, obviously, one of the Baltimore schools are probably going to go 10-0 because of some of the scheduling stuff that they have going on. So, but we're gonna be rooting for at least 2. We're kind of greedy over here in Moco, so we're gonna be rooting for at least 2, and we're definitely looking at your program as a program that can possibly contend for that with the athletes that you guys have and the kind of players that you have, and obviously the coaching staff that you guys have. So, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. Really do appreciate it, and obviously we're big fans, and we're gonna be rooting for you guys during the season.
Hey, no problem, man. Anytime you guys want me on, you let me know. I'm big fans of yours too, man. Just don't forget about me when you get your own ESPN show.
That's what we're trying, man. That's what we're trying for.
All right, man.
Okay. We're going to lead right into our 5 big things for the 4A East. So first and foremost, Damon, for our 5 big things, we're going to start off with the division champs at, Sherwood Warriors. The biggest question, can Sherwood repeat what they did with losing a guy like Marcus Sims and a number of other senior leaders like Bob Johnjo and others? Can they repeat as division champs? Now, me personally, everybody knows that, I love Sherwood. I went there and my brother went there, and, I think that when I spent some time out there last week, there's a culture building over there. I believe in what they're doing. A lot of people like to make jokes about a number of ex-head coaches that we have on our staff. I challenge anybody that has any questions about that just to go to a practice and sit down and talk to these guys. These guys know football. These kids are getting some of the best coaching that anybody can get in this county. And I truly, honestly believe that. I believe that Coach Guerrero has the respect of the team. A lot of people were thinking that last year was, just a situation where they had just good players. I don't believe so. I think that it was something that was building. If you look at when Coach Guerrero first got there, I'm going to be honest with you, as a Sherwood supporter, I thought that team would be lucky if they won 5 games. The kind of talent that was on that team. And they ended up going 7-3 and made the playoffs versus Paint Branch, ended up losing to Paint Branch. And from that point on, I kind of saw that Coach Guerrero had, something building. And once he got a staff that he could work with, I think that, he was going to be able to take off. And he ended up going undefeated on the field last season, won a playoff game, had his best player go out early in the first quarter versus Howard. And obviously Howard was the better team. There's no question about that. But what he's been able to do up to this point, I think is very impressive. And, when you look at what they have working with when it comes on to talent, now, don't get me wrong, it's going to be a young team this year. There's a lot of holes they're going to have to, plug in. But I believe that they have a lot of good players that they're bringing up, to kind of replace some of the guys that they lost. I mean, but one guy that they didn't lose was Travis Levy, the number 1 overall ranked player in Montgomery County, ranked by us. He's a guy that we saw him when he was a freshman, and we knew immediately that this kid was going to be special, and he ended up being that. And now, and when you look at Travis, this is a kid that every single year he added something to his game. Got a little bit better, a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. I'm just kind of excited to see what he's going to be like this year. I'm pretty sure he looked at what Jake Funk did last year, and I think that he wants to be that for Sherwood. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to have the same kind of yardage and everything like that, but at the same time, I think he wants to be that guy that they can go to, that nobody can stop on a week in and week out basis, right? And I think that he can definitely step into that role and maybe lessen the blow of losing a guy like Marcus Sims, who's a bona fide Division I football player who's doing great things at West Virginia right now. Obviously, talk about the defensive back position. Jelani Matthews is a kid that stepped in last year. Really surprised some people. Now he's going to be the main cornerback, and he's a kid that I really loved his development last year. He really took on a lot of challenges that a lot of young kids wouldn't have taken on, and I think that he's going to really develop. When you talk about the defensive line, you got Stubblefield, a big kid, really aggressive. You talk about Imhim Akola. He's a kid that I believe a lot of people don't really know about right now, but I think that he's definitely going to be a name by midseason that a lot of people are going to be talking about. Got a scholarship from Howard. He's a pass rushing machine. Somebody's going to have to replace that productivity of Bob Jonjo, and he's going to have to kind of step up and go into that role. And then now the last person I'm going to mention, and there's a lot of people, I want to go on and on and on because there's so many kids on Sherwood that I love, but the last person I'm going to mention, because I'm running a little bit long-winded here, is Michael Mboni. Now, this kid is probably going to be the starting quarterback for Sherwood. Last year, if you look on our list, we ranked him one of the top corners or defensive backs in the county. He is a solidly built kid, a little bit short for a quarterback, but the kid is smart. He has great football IQ, tremendous athlete. He's a baseball player. You could tell that he's not really like a yelling type, Damon, in your face kind of quarterback, but you can tell that he has a command of a huddle. He has the respect of the kids on the team and everything. And I'm really excited to see what they're doing. Obviously Sherwood's going to try to run the ball this year, and I think that he's going to be a big part of it. I think that he could be a star that emerges and people talk about. Obviously, I went a little bit too long, and it's my team. I kind of get excited about it. What do you think about them, Damon, and overall? And do you think that they have a chance to repeat this year as 4A East champions?
Well, I think you pretty much said it all. Absolutely. Sherwood is definitely my favorite to repeat as division champ. Like you said, at least in my opinion, it all starts with the Boston College commit, Travis Levy. As he goes, the Warriors go, in my opinion. As you mentioned, there are several other players that are of excellent quality, but I think the show starts with Mr. Levy. He's the top back in Montgomery County, according to our own preseason list, and for good reason. He had an excellent junior campaign. Rushed for a little bit shy of 1,500 yards, which is considering he was splitting, fighting with first team current West Virginia Mountaineer Marcus Sims for touches when it came to the ball. So for him to put 1,400 yards is amazing. Now that he'll be the focal point of the Warriors offense, it'll be real interesting to see what kind of numbers he puts up. Speaking as a team overall, I mean, it doesn't get any better than going 10-0 on the field.
Right.
They're 40 plus points a game. I mean, that you couldn't ask for more as an offensive coordinator or a coach. Points per game allowed, 14, almost 15 points a game. That's acceptable, but to make it to the state championship, you might have to chip away at that a little bit. You definitely want to in the 10 range or under.
Right.
But I expect the defense will be addressed in 2016. Looking forward to the regular season. I don't expect them to have any problems until we get to week 5 when they take on the Northwest Jaguars. Even though last year's game was played in a hurricane, I still think it would have been a close game regardless of the weather. Mm-hmm. It's just that good of a matchup between those two teams. Mm-hmm. So we should be looking nice going into week 5, and then we'll see. That'll be our first answer to whether they can repeat as division champs and try to make another run in the playoffs.
Right.
Outside of that, one player that really piques my interest, I think you mentioned him, is senior middle linebacker Robert Brown. 180 pounds of solid rock.
Right.
I do believe he will be spelling Levy in the backfield as a backup running back.
Absolutely.
And when you have a player like Robert Brown as your backup running back, no defense can rest easy, even though Levy may be off the field.
Right.
So that's definitely one of my players that I think people should take a look at when they're not watching Travis Levy run up and down the field.
Right. Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm sorry I got long-winded right there, man. That kind of...
you got excited.
Hey, look, man. It's football time. We're ready to go. You know what I'm saying? Look, it is what it is. It is what it is. So we're gonna move on to number 2 in the 5 big things, and we're gonna move on to Paint Branch. And last year, Damon, they had a terrific season. However, it ended kind of on a sour note with a loss to QO, knocking them out of the playoffs. This was a team that was loaded with talent. They had some of the better players in the state of Maryland, especially at the linebacker core. This year, I think that, and I'm just gonna be honest with you, I think that this might be the year of JD Guerrero, and I'm not just talking about in the 4 East. I'm talking about just overall, because at some point, and JD has been an ultimate team player, right? He came to Paint Branch, and he was one of, first off the bat as a sophomore, he was a contributor, and every single year there was always a kid. Now he still stayed productive. He still stayed one of the best wide receivers in the county, but there's always a kid that kind of, outgained him on his own team or whatever the case may be. I think that this is the year for JD Guerrero. I think this is the year of JD Guerrero. I think that, he's going to be playing all over the field. I think that he wants to let everybody know he's one of, if not the best skill position player in this county. And he's going to have an opportunity to prove that this year. And talking to Coach Neesmith earlier this year, he told me that, look, JD Guerrero has to be a dude this year. And what he meant by that was he has to be one of those guys that is up for player of the year considerations at the end of the year. And I think that he has the talent to do it. I think that, in the previous 2 years, I think that there were people that kind of came about that, were really good. Ivan D last year was a really good player. And I think that kind of, JD kind of went to more of a corner role, which he became one of the better corners in the whole thing. Some people will argue he was the best corner. He was I believe he's our number 3 DB overall in Montgomery County going into this thing. And he's multi-talented. He's going to see time at quarterback this year. He's going to do multiple things. And I think that JD Guerrero has the opportunity to be in that player of the year discussion. I think that he can do that. He has that kind of talent. And I just want to see him step up into that role and really grasp it and say, you know what, I'm going to prove to everybody. Now, if you're saying 5 names in this county, you can't leave my name out. And I think if he has that attitude, I think that Paint Branch is going to be dangerous. Another kid that I want to talk about, and I'm really excited about this kid. This kid is, the prototype of what you want an outside linebacker to be, and that's Darrell Chammy. I mean, Damon, I'm pretty sure you've seen this kid's film. This kid has an opportunity to be special. Now, he's a young kid. He's a rising junior. Last year as a sophomore, I mean, he bursted on the scene, was in the backfield constantly, giving havoc all the time. He's a kid that can single-handedly just ruin a whole game plan, right? Like, he's that kind of kid. And for Paint Branch, and Paint Branch is getting to be known for two things: wide receivers and linebackers. And Darrell Chammy is just in that line, right, of linebackers, of great linebackers that they've had over the years. And if this kid actually develops, and he actually had a good scrimmage versus Gonzaga last week, if he continues to develop the way that we think he's going to develop, I mean, it could change the whole, not only this division, it can change all of Montgomery County. He's really one of those guys that, I'm going to be looking at. And then another part of, and this is, ever since Coach Neesmith has been there, they've been able to run the football. They've been one of the most physical teams in Montgomery County. Last year wasn't the case. The running game didn't really go off. Some of it had to do with injury, and some of it just had to do with just, lack of physicality, honestly. And I think a guy like Justin Hockaday, the running back that's coming back, he had injury problems last year. I think if he can stay healthy, we're going to see a little bit different, a different team for Paint Branch coming up. What do you think about Paint Branch and some of the things that they have going on? And do you think that they could possibly win the division this year and overthrow Sherwood? And what are some of the things you want to see from them for you to feel comfortable about picking them in this division?
As it stands right now, if the Paint Branch Panthers want to dethrone Sherwood as a top dog in 4A East, as you mentioned, J.D. Guerrero is going to have the best season of his high school career. For me, I honestly believe it's going to go through him in multiple ways on offense and defense. He's going to have to be the showstopper. Mm-hmm. I fully believe he is physically capable of doing that. It's just a question of will the other pieces involved step up so they can have that run to knock off Sherwood. As you mentioned, they have several players, especially at linebacker. Darrell Chammy, as you mentioned, should be one of the top linebackers coming in. I honestly believe he'll live up to our preseason expectations. Right. Another kid to watch out for at running back, as you mentioned, Justin Hockaday. He's going to have to carry the load or share the load offensively with JD when they're not chucking the ball to JD at the wideout position. Fully expect Justin to be coming out the backfield, catching screens, and keeping opposing defenses off balance. Mm-hmm. Overall, Paint Branch is in a good situation, period. Statistically, they have one of the easier schedules in the county, so that sets them up in a very nice position as they close out the season with their two biggest tests, which will be Quince Orchard and Sherwood. And just like last year, I'm fairly positive, once again, playoff positioning and seeding is going to come down to the last week for the boys in Burtonsville. Right. Regardless of what the record is. I mean, they could come into week 10 9-0 and the playoffs still be in question, as crazy as that sounds. Right. As a matter of fact, I think we did the math last year, and even if Paint Branch went 9-1, they still would not have made the playoffs. So it's kind of crazy. You have to run the table to have a guaranteed shot at the playoffs, but that's just the way the system is. As high-powered as their offense was, when you crunch numbers, they scored 35 points a game. Overall, that's pretty good, but there were definitely a few games last season where the offense was limited due to opposing defenses making those adjustments.
Right.
Points allowed per game, 16. That's pretty good, but given their schedule, I'm sure Coach Neesmith and the defensive side of the ball, they know they can do better than that. And I expect the offensive numbers to remain about the same. The defense, I expect that to drop. So that'll put us in a good position to close out the season. Like I said at the top, I'm picking Sherwood to remain king of that division, but by no means is that a foregone conclusion. We'll find out week 8 when they take on Sherwood.
Okay, everybody, we're here with JD Guerrero, the do everything wide receiver, cornerback, and now a little bit of quarterback now for JD. JD, thank you so much for joining the show, man. We really appreciate you taking out the time.
Yeah, I thank you for putting me on the show.
No problem. Well, first and foremost, just reflect back on last year. You guys got out to a great start. Paint Branch was really rolling early on in the season. Then now, the late 2 losses to Sherwood and then now to Quince Orchard kind of kept you guys out of the playoffs, even though you guys had a great record at 8-2. Just kind of reflecting on last year and just what some of the things that you took away, good and bad, and how you applied it to this offseason.
Oh, well, those 2 losses have been a big eye-opener. Like, we could be a good team, but if we're not all together, all watch a film, all studying, we can lose to the teams we're not supposed to.
Right.
Coach Nee has a great game plan every week, and we know what they're going to do every week, every play, every down. It's to the point that we need to be studying like Coach Nee studying. So if we all do that together, even though we're a young team this year, we can still beat those big teams. It's not like we need to back down just because we're young or be scared. We can compete and have a battle rather than get thrown out like we did last year.
Right. No, absolutely. And you touched on you guys being a young team, and actually, when I talked to Coach Neesmith early on this year, he specifically mentioned you, and he said that if we're going to be a good team, Kevin, JD Guerrero has to be that guy. He has to be a dude, and he really emphasized he really wanted you to step up your leadership. He wanted you to be that guy, and when I look at you. You've been an ultimate team player throughout your whole career. Every single year, you're a premier wide receiver, and there's always another guy with you that's catching a lot of balls, getting a lot of yards, and you never complain, you never hang your head. You're always a team player. But this year, me and my co-host Damon Anderson, we think that this is your year. We think that this is your year where not necessarily you're gonna be selfish, but this is the year that we're going to see like that breakout performance from you. I think that you're going to be in that MVP discussion. And I think talking to Coach Neesmith, he thinks that too. Just talk about your mentality, it being a young team. And now this is finally kind of your team where you're going to kind of mold it. And every single week people are expecting you to produce. And if you don't produce, you might not win.
But what the thing with our young team is that they're all in.
Right.
They're all listening to coach. They're all listening to the leaders on the team, and they're focused. They know we're young, and they're not letting that be an excuse.
Right.
They learned from our mistakes from the year before, even though we had all the big players, Cheeto, Cedric, Jordan Hill, but that didn't matter. We still lost the games we needed to win, needed to win. So everyone's all in studying. Like, people thought we weren't going to be Gonzaga, but everybody studied, everybody watched film. And they play their hearts out. Even though we're young, they put their bodies on the line, and that's what we need every week from them. And I'm going to make sure that with our other leaders on the team.
Every single year, it seems like Paint Branch has a great wide receiver. And Paint Branch is becoming now wide receiver especially in this county, maybe even in the state. And every single year, there's a kid that's either at the top or in the top 5 in receiving yards. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that the culture at Paint Branch produces such good wide receiver talent?
Because the wide receiver coaches like Coach Smith and also Coach Meade, they make you know it's not just running a route. It's about split spacing and everything to make everything right. And we have a lot of receivers this year, big, are just all in. They ready to go. They go up for a ball, even though someone might hit them, they're not gonna just fold and catch and drop the ball. They're gonna catch it. They're gonna do what we gotta do to win the game.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're all in. Everyone's all in. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, everyone's all in. They're not backing down or being selfish at all, because egos spread all the time.
Right.
No one's being selfish. That's why we always win and always breaking out, because no one's being selfish. It's just we do our job and we take a safety and someone else is open. Like, congrats them. It's not like I'm not going to cut if someone's not doing it. They're not scoring or anything like that.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're kind of a guy that is all over the field. And last year, everybody knew you as a wide receiver, but last year you actually turned out to be a premier defensive back in the county.
Yeah.
And every single week you're matched up on some of the toughest guys that we have in this county, whether it's DeMarcus Sims or whatever the case may be, and you held your own. And for us, we actually ranked you as a defensive back. Which position do you like the best? Is it wide receiver? Is it defensive back? Which one kind of do you want to play going forward?
Defensive back.
Okay.
Yeah, I played receiver so long, and I love receivers, but it comes natural to me. It helps me for defense.
Right.
Because I know how to run routes. I know where to break them and what certain splits, what route I'm mostly running. And it helps me on defense. Even though I'm not the fastest guy, it helps me with my advantage.
Right. Absolutely. And you're playing a little bit of quarterback this year. Coach Nee's going to have you back there a little bit. Talk about how that has helped you in your overall knowledge of the game, and then also your leadership, putting you in that role, because obviously the quarterback role is obviously like what the ultimate leadership role. How's that, helped maybe the perception of you when it comes on to, you as a leader on the team and everything like that, and the responsibility that puts on you?
Yeah, it put a lot of leadership on me, but even before that, the kids knew that I was the leader and that this team's not necessarily behind me, but people are looking out for me and all this stuff. But the quarterback also helped me. I don't know how to explain it, because it's just I'm the quarterback now. I'm not the receiver. I'm not just the DB. I'm the quarterback, and I got to do more. I got to show the team that I know more than I'm not going home and not watching film. I'm not going home and just going to sleep because I'm tired.
Right.
I got to go home, watch film, watch practice, see what I did wrong, and the next day I got to improve.
Right. No,
so
absolutely.
It's just showing them, not necessarily with my words. And that's easy, but it's my actions. I'm showing them with my actions and what to do, what not to do.
Right.
And making examples. This is what you got to do. This is that. Because I want all the kids, the young kids, to succeed. Be at the top their senior year. I don't want them to fall back and think and get complacent with where they're at. But everyone has room for improvement.
Right. No, absolutely. And this is the last question before I get you out of here, man. Of course, you guys had a great season last year, but fell short of coming up to making the playoffs. What is a successful season for Paint Branch? This coming season, what is a successful season for you guys? We detailed that you guys have a young team, but you guys have a talented team as well. And obviously with you at the helm and you with your experience and a few other guys like Darrell Chammy, that's going to be a top tier defensive player in the county. Obviously you guys are still going to have high expectations. What is a successful season for Paint Branch?
First off, we're going to make the playoffs. Make sure we make the playoffs like we did in last year. But as soon as we get to the playoffs, everybody knows that we're trying to win the championship.
Right.
Even though we have a young team, people probably putting us out they're not making it. Just put another team in there just for guessing or something. But they need to know that we coming in, we're focused, we're ready. We're going to be ready for every team every week. And we're not going to back down just because we're young. We're going to come and get people blows, pop them in the face before they pop us in ours.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. That sounds good. That sounds really good. And I'm really excited to see you this year. I've been a fan of how you play the game for a while now, since your sophomore season, and Now that you're going to take on like a larger role on the offense, I'm really excited to see what you're going to do, and excited to see what Paint Branch does. I'm a big fan of Coach Nee and what he's done with Paint Branch, and keep on doing what you guys are doing, and definitely going to come out and see you guys.
All right, thank you.
All right, no problem. That discussion right there with Sherwood and Paint Branch kind of leads me to my next, to number 3 in the 5 big things, which is the Blair Blazers. I mean, their consistency over the last 2 years have been one of the biggest revelations in Montgomery County. They have made the playoffs the last 2 years, something that the program has never seen, never even came close to seeing. Blair is coming into this year, and they're looking at it and saying, why can't we be the best team in this division? They have, in our rankings again, they have the number 1 quarterback in all of the land, and Desmond Colby. This kid, we've seen this kid grow from the time he was a sophomore, coming up to last year, really taking that team by the horns and becoming the leader that we thought that he was going to be, putting up spectacular numbers. Desmond Colby is a kid that, I believe that he's going to just, take off again this year. He can do just about anything on the field. He's returning his main wideout, Cliff Carter. He's coming back for this year. And Cliff Carter is a kid that, I believe is an all-around kid. You're talking about special teams. You're talking about defense. You're talking about, from the X spot at wide receiver, outside to the slot. He can do just about anything you want on the football field from a skill position standpoint. But the name that I think that a lot of people need to get, familiar with is a kid named Eric Zakuri. And, I remember I was talking to one of his ex-teammates, Chris Green, last year, and he was just raving about the kid. And he was like, look, man, next year, this kid, Eric Zakuri, he's going to be one of the top guys coming back, and they really feel strongly about him, not only as a running back but as a linebacker as well. And really solid built kid. This kid could really come on the scene and surprise a lot of people. Had a few Division I offers over the off season. So not only did we see his talent, the college scouts actually saw his talent as well. So I mean, they're gonna have to replace two of their better wide receivers in Chris Green and Amari Brooks, and that's where I believe that a guy like Christopher Butler is gonna have to step up, become one of those guys, and really take that next step. They really like him. They think that he can be a guy that definitely can become one of the top wide receivers on their thing. Obviously, they're gonna have to get through Sherwood or Paint Branch. I believe that they have the capability to upset one of the two. I don't know which one. Obviously, they have Sherwood at home, so I guess that's the one that they probably looking at saying we're probably gonna have to. That's the one that we're probably gonna have to beat. Because when you get a team at home, I'm sure that the crowd is going to be, insane. They've played Sherwood tough last few years. So that's the one I'm pretty sure they're looking at saying, okay, this is the one we have to get, because, it's going to be a tough task going up to Paint Branch trying to come away with the victory. Do you think that they have the capability of knocking off one of the top two this year? And what do you think about their season overall?
So Blair, they're in an interesting position. They're not quite considered top dog or one of the top dogs in the division, but they're definitely not considered a second tier team. So they're in that weird limbo where they're trying to make a move upward and definitely not take a step backward. Overall, even though their 2015 record, they dropped 2 more games than they did in the 2014 campaign. I think the 2015 team was definitely more competitive overall. They just had a step up in the schedule. So with that being said, Blair was 0-4 versus teams over 500 last year.
Right.
That tells you pretty much the whole story right there.
Right.
They beat the teams they were supposed to beat, and they lost the teams they were expected to lose to.
Mm-hmm.
For them to make that next step, they're going to have to upset somebody.
Right.
Whether that's Paint Branch or Sherwood or both, they're gonna need to make that happen. Individually, like you mentioned, it all starts with Desmond Colby. In a year where we have kids at the QB position like Markel Grant and Doc Bonner, and my personal favorite, Matt Clayton from Whitman, to be above 3 players like that says a lot. Desmond's been doing it for a few years now. Blair likes to run that wide open offense, and Desmond definitely thrives in that type of environment. The question is, for the team, can the defense step up?
Right.
It was interesting. Blair scored 32.8 points a game. That's pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
But they also gave up 19 points a game. And that number jumps to over 25 points a game when you talk about teams over 500. So if Blair can make that next step to be considered one of the top dogs in 4A East, something has to give on defense. Now, with that being said, looking at their schedule moving forward, they should get off to a good start the first 2 weeks versus Northwood. Actually, let me take that back. Week 2, we all have a good idea. BCT is an underrated offense. Now, it may not reflect on the record, but they've got a pretty potent offense in Bethesda, so that'll be a good early season test for Blair to see if their D is where they need to be to knock off the Northwest, the Paint Branch, the Sherwood, the Damascus.
Right.
Those are the 4 teams that put it on them on defense last year. Not to mention the playoff loss to QO at the Cougar Dome. So, we'll see. I'm going to take the wait and see approach for Blair. Even though I'm a huge fan of Coach Fields and his staff, but it's at that point now. Like 2014, they came on like gangbusters, went 8-2 during the regular season.
Right.
Things kind of came back to earth a little bit last year with the slightly tougher schedule. So now they're in the second year of the same schedule. You've already got to look at each one of these teams. So we'll see. Do they remain the same? Going 6-4 again, losing to the 4 teams they play over 500? Or do they upset one of those 4 teams along the way? Honestly, if they could go 1-3 in those 4 games versus the teams over 500, and that would be awesome. That would be great.
Right.
Yeah, if Blair beats Northwest, Paint Branch, Sherwood, or Damascus, that'll be the top. That might be the number one topic game of the season if the Blazers are able to pull off one of those.
Absolutely.
But with all that being said, all it does is set you up with the playoff date with potentially another rematch with Northwest. And if you get past them, then you'll have Quince Orchard more than likely waiting in the wing. But, that's where the big boys play. I mean, when you're a top team, playoffs is kind of an expectation, not a goal. Like, we expect to get to the playoffs.
Right.
The goal is big championship. And Blair is just trying to make that step to get in that conversation with Northwest and Sherwood and Damascus.
Right. No, absolutely. I agree 100% with everything that you just said. Yeah, and moving forward, a team that a lot of people are looking to upset or be in that mix in some way, somehow, the SBrook Blue Devils. And, you know, SBrook obviously, you know, had, you know, I wouldn't call it a surprise year, but a year that kind of put them back into the discussion. Last year, Coach Lomax really did a really good job with them. They clearly had a new style of offense. When you talk about what they were able to do offensively, they really were able to stretch the field. But the person or the player that a lot of people are going to be talking about when they talk about SBrook is not going to be a quarterback. It's not going to be a wide receiver. It's not going to be any kind of skill position. It's going to be a lineman, a big lineman at that, a Division I lineman at that, and that's Lognaya. This kid right here could be special. And, you know, if you look at his measurables, around 6'4", around the 285 range, you know, he's still kind of raw as a player, but, I mean, the things that he's shown on film, I mean, you can really see why the coaches, the Division I coaches really like this kid and why he's committed to Wake Forest right now. Another kid I'm really excited to see for SBrook is Tyler Beckwith. He's a wide receiver. Really stood out amongst a bunch of wide receivers that SBrook had. I think that he's going to be a kid that we're gonna be talking about. What do you think about SBrook? Do you think that there's a chance they can basically upset one of the big three and get into that discussion this year?
Absolutely. The Blue Devils went 5-5 last year, and that was with dropping or their starting running back getting injured almost at the beginning of the season, and they were still able to finish with a 500 record. So I think 6-4 is a very, very strong possibility. And then if they can get to 6-4, 7-3 is obviously right around the corner. Looking at their schedule, the only teams that, you know, they would be considered underdogs in are the teams that we talked about previously, Sherwood, and Branch, and Blair.
Right.
Outside of those, all the games that are remaining on their schedule are winnable.
Right.
So 6-4, 7-3, that is a strong possibility for SBrook. Now, they are in the same region as Paint Branch and Sherwood. So the playoffs at a 7-3 record, that is a long shot.
Right.
But if we can finish 7-3, that's just another building block that Coach Lomax and the Blue Devils can build off of going into the future.
Right.
Individually, you already mentioned Naya, but I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with him, so we'll just give you some numbers just so you can put a visual into your head about how much of a specimen this kid is.
Okay.
6'4", 275 pounds, 5'0", 40-yard dash. For a kid that size, that's moving. 24-inch vertical. I mean, he's going to be knocking down a lot of passes at the defensive end position.
Right.
280-pound bench press. That means he's going to be moving a lot of kids off the line real quick. 545-pound squat. Yep. I mean, that's like pistons.
Right.
Legs. So they give you an idea of what SBrook is working with on the offensive and defensive line. Like you said, Coach Lomax came in last year from Rockville and implemented his high-powered offense. And it paid immediate dividends. It's a fun offense to play in. The kids buy into the program. So now that he's moving into his second year. I'm sure he's going to expand the playbook even more. So watch out for the Blue Devils. And I'm confident they're going to turn a few heads this year.
Right. No, absolutely. I'm right there with you with that. I'm right there with you with that. And, you know, going into the fifth of the five big things, you know, talking about turning heads, these teams are hoping to turn some heads this season. We're talking about Kennedy, Northwood, and Einstein. All three had pretty much disappointing years last year. Especially in my opinion, Einstein was the biggest disappointment because of the expectations that we had. Now, Einstein obviously had some injuries that kind of played into it, but you know, going forward, I think that, you know, we're going to be looking at these three are kind of on the same level. They kind of played a little bit of a round robin when it came on to, you know, wins last year. I think that Einstein, out of these three, clearly have the best shot of emerging and doing something against the previous teams that we just talked about. You know, obviously you talk about Christian Greaves. He's one of the top wide receivers, one of the top players, period, in the county. You know, we talked about him last year. Obviously, he had an injury, and that really affected the team. Jason Klingman, there's another guy that we talked about a lot last year, you know, and I think that he's going to have to take that next step into being a top-tier quarterback this year. And if he's able to do that, I think that, you know, Einstein will have a shot. Another kid that, you know, a lot of people like, and he's actually gotten a lot of college interest is Arnold Ebekti, kid that he's really aggressive off the edge, had a good amount of sacks last year. A lot of people like him, you know, over there in Einstein, and he's a kid that, like I said, a lot of colleges are looking at. So they definitely have, in my opinion, the best pieces out of the three to possibly, you know, make a move and shock some people. Who out of the three, Damon, is there a team that you think that could probably rise up and do something this year and possibly get themselves into the discussion?
Well, like you mentioned, Einstein definitely, in our opinion, has the most talent to work with out of the three teams. But I also think we're in agreement that Kennedy has the best coaching staff, or the more well-known, established coaching staff, I should say. So it depends on what you're working with. Now, we are getting word that Kennedy definitely has some athletes worth checking out. It's just a question whether, you know, the whole team can gel and they can put things together for at least one win during the season. Nobody wants to see the kids and coaches work as hard as they do throughout the season and not at least taste the taste of victory we want. The Cavaliers came close a couple of times last year. They just couldn't close it out. Northwood, despite all the problems in terms of consistency and coaching routine changes, Northwood still was able to cobble together 2 wins last year, which, if you've been paying attention to what's been going on over there, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, coaching changes, kids transferring to other schools, that would have been a lot, and they still cobbled together 2 wins. So that, out of the 3, Northwood was the overachieving team of last year.
Right.
So that's something to hang your hat on. So let's see if the Gladiators can hopefully continue that trend in 2016. But I tell you what, offensively and defensively, both teams are going to have to step it up. All 3 teams are in the bottom half of the county for points fielded and points allowed. So it's going to be an uphill battle, but in each program's individual case, they got something to work with. Einstein has the talent to work with. Kennedy has the coaching staff to work with. Northwood has the momentum to work with. So it's just a matter of what each definitely be keeping an eye out on my down county teams. I live in that area, so I will be checking out each one of those teams at least once this year to see what they got going.
With Einstein, man, that was really disappointing last season. Honestly, a lot of people were talking about them as possible. I don't know if it was playoff contenders, but definitely, guys that, a program that was on the rise and possibly challenging some of the big boys, and that clearly didn't happen last year. So, I'm looking at them and saying, hey, not a lot of people are talking about you guys this year. Maybe this is the time that you step up and create that magic again, or the magic that people thought that you were going to have last year.
I just come to let y'all know, put some respect on my name.
Put some respect.
Put some respect.
Put some respect.
Put some respect when you mention my name.
We're going to introduce a new segment, and it's called, put some respect on his name. And basically what this is, and first and foremost, we just want to say that, we're trying our best to get, talk about as many players as we can. And this is kind of a segment that kind of introduces this. We're going to introduce this segment, put some respect on his name. Me and Dame are going to choose one player, during the year, each week. Each of us is going to have a different player that we feel like is either underrated or people are not talking about a lot. You guys can tweet us or choose a message on the message board. Or if you see us at one of the games, pull us aside and tell us about a kid that maybe we need to put some more respect on their name, and it's play off of, I don't know if you guys know about the whole, origin of that, but if you don't, you guys can go look it up. And, this week for the 4A East, the person that I'm going to go with, I'm going to go back to my Sherwood Warriors, a guy named Joey Hunt. Mr. Joey Hunt, he's been a starter since his freshman year in high school. This is junior year now. He is the leader of that wide receiver core. He's going to start at safety. Not a lot of people are talking about him as one of the top guys, but Sherwood's going to count on him a lot. And I think that he's going to be a guy that is definitely going to be talked about. Is going to be one of the better players in the county this year. I think that he's going to be pivotal to Sherwood's success. He's going to be a leader. He's going to be a guy that the coach is going to lean on. So I definitely think that Joey Hunt is a guy that we got to put some respect on his name. Damien, do you have somebody?
Yeah, I'm going to go back down to SBrook. And even though he's on our preseason all-county list at wide receiver, I don't think he gets talked about among the top players at that position that seem to get a lot of pub, and that's Tyler Beckwith. Pretty much all you have to do is look at his film.
Right.
The kid, I don't know. First off, he's a basketball player also, so he has soft hands. Obviously, has a legit vertical leap, and in Coach Lomax's offense, he gets a lot of balls thrown his way.
Right.
And for the Blue Devils to get above 500 this season, I expect Tyler Beckwith to go off. He's 6'1", 185 pounds, running 4.6 40, 315 pound squat. Like I said, just look up his tape, and I'd be shocked if anybody took a look at it and didn't come away impressed, especially in the offense that SBrook runs. So that's a kid I think you have to put some respect on his name.
Okay.
You're going to hear more about him going forward during the season, especially if the Blue Devils live up to my expectations and get above 500 this year.
Okay, definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining in and listening to us for another week. we're really excited about the season, man. It's right around the corner. You know, again, shout out to all the kids that are out there balling and doing their thing. So again, thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.